Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
Strictly for the culture. Brothers and sisters, you have seen the t-shirts, the hats, the hoodies, the mugs in the hands of some of your favorite pro wrestling stars, podcasters, and influencers out there. And now it's time. Visit strictlyfortheculture.ca and you too can be part of the movement. Bigger than sweatshirts and commercial success, Strictly for the Culture aims to build with like-minded people and elevate their position in the world through knowledge, self-love, and a desire to unite. So what are you waiting on? Visit strictlyfortheculture.ca. Do it for the love. Do it for the knowledge. Most importantly, folks, do it strictly for the culture.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke Loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back to another wonderful edition of Devon and the Duke, the limited podcast series hosted by your main man, Duke Loves Rasslin, and of course, the five-time Hall of Famer himself, the family man himself, Mr. Devon Dudley. How you doing there, Devon?
Good. Not bad at all. Just sitting here with my baby girl at home and just relaxing.
You know, it's funny. Last episode, you were talking about cleaning up the room and the closet and what have you, and we got so much feedback over that, like just saying, "Man, Devon is he's a regular dad, isn't he?" I say, "Yeah, he sure is."
I do it all, man. I like my wife is cheap. She likes to save money, so we clean the pool. Anything that we got to do, we do it ourselves, and I just make sure that everything is done around the house and try to make sure that I free up my Sundays getting ready for football. So as long as I do it during the week, I'm okay.
Absolutely. Well, you just open up a can of worms now. Now, I got to warn you, Devon, and this is probably going to drive a little bit of a wedge between our friendship here, so I apologize in advance. Despite the fact that I'm born and raised in Boston, and we know that this is New England Patriots territory, I am a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. So knowing where you come from, I'm pretty sure we're rivals, but let's find out now. Who's your NFL team?
The New York Jets.
So how did you get to the Jets?
Well, if I can remember right, as a kid, 6, 7 years old, I was watching, and I believe I'm looking at it in my head right now. I was watching ABC, and there was a football game on, and I just remember reading, it said Jets. Like I said, I was like 6. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I remember reading Jets, and I thought the green and white was like really cool at that time. So I remember just saying to myself, the New York Jets, that's my team. The New York Jets, that's my team. And every week, football was on during football season, and I would look for the Jets. And that's how I was born. There was no rhyme or reason like I thought they were great or good. I just liked the colors and the fact that I could read the jersey that said Jets.
I love it. And ever since. Now, I know you remember the Curtis Martin years and all that. Those are some good years there, man.
Absolutely. Listen, Curtis Martin, Richard Todd, Freeman McNeil, Wesley Walker. The list goes on. Gastineau, Klecko. That was great times in the 80s. I just remember not really being a football fan until I became a Jet fan. It was one of those things where I was intrigued, like I said earlier, by the colors and the fact that I was able to read the word Jets on the jersey. But most importantly, the fans in New York were phenomenal. Even when the Jets sucked, they still were behind them 110%. And I think that's what got me most importantly with that. Um, I remember some of the coaches back then that coached the teams. I remember Bill Parcells did it. I think it was right after the run with the Giants, and we thought that our legacy was going to be fulfilled, and it didn't work. I think the Jets are cursed. We have not been good since Joe Namath, and I pray to God that before I leave this earth, that I can at least see the Jets make it to the Super Bowl and possibly win. That's my goal in life now.
Well, I hope you get it. I mean, at the very least, let's hope that the Jets uh, beat the dog mess out of the Patriots, because I'm going to tell you right now, there is nothing more than I love than to giggle my backside off at the expense of Patriots fans. I can't stand the Patriots.
Well,
Okay,
that's when you
so
that's when you
you and
should
I are aligned.
that's when you should have jumped over the ship and come to a New York fan.
That's it. That's it. But Dallas has my heart, though, man. I mean, Emmitt Smith, I got to blame him. I find him to be such a gentleman, classy guy. Always appreciate the way he played ball. So because of him, I just stuck with the team. You know what I mean? That's just the way it went. So
I feel the same way
you
about the
know,
Jets. No matter how many times they
yes, sir.
lose, I'll still be with them.
I love it. That's good stuff there. And you know what else is good stuff? All of you folks in Ottawa, Canada. The Ottawa Comic Con is coming up September 6th through the 8th. And guess what? The five-time Hall of Famer himself, Devon Dudley, is going to be there on September 7th and 8th. So you got to make sure you get your tickets. You got to come out. Bring everybody, okay? Bring your mama, bring your cousin, bring your girlfriend, whoever. Make sure you come out and check out the Ottawa Comic Con so you can see Devon Dudley. Are you going to have any special merchandise out there up in Ottawa then?
Well, I got the new T-shirts, Team Dudley, and then it has a very cool logo on the back that's done very well here in the States. I got the old school ECW tie-dye shirts I'm going to be selling. So, come on down and just really, really check out the merchandise, real cool stuff, and, go from there.
That's right. That's right. Devon Dudley's second home. What do you think about the food up in Ottawa there, Devon? Have you had any good food up there?
Can't say that I have. It's always been chain restaurants that I've gone to. Stuff that you already know what's in there, but yet it's in a different country and you try it anyway. But that's me. I don't really think outside the box.
Got it. Got it. Well, listen, any of you fans out there, especially up in Ottawa, if you have any suggestions, we're not trying to break the bank here, but we want a good meal. If you have any suggestions for Devon, send them in. Okay. Of course, testify Devon on Instagram and Twitter. Duke Loves Rasslin on Instagram and Twitter. Let us know what you think there. I'm sure we can find something a little better than a regular chain restaurant for Devon. I tried that Tim Hortons coffee, man, and I'm sorry. I'm still stuck to Dunkin' Donuts. I just can't do it.
Really? You're the first one to say that.
Yeah, man. Listen, maybe it's just because that's what I'm used to. In fact, the original Dunkin' Donuts is not far from where I live. This is the first one ever built. So I'm stuck to the original, man. I'm sorry.
Wow, I don't hear too many people say that.
Are you a coffee guy?
Absolutely. Love it.
Okay. All right. So here we go. This is a big one now. What is the Devon Dudley coffee? How do you get it all fixed up and what have you? Where do you get it from?
Dunkin' Donuts. We don't have a Tim Horton over here, but Dunkin' Donuts, black, 4 sugars.
There it is. Okay. You sound. My mom takes it. She has to do decaf these days, but she does a small black decaf, 3 sugars, and that's a former police officer, 37 years on the job, and she would always tell me it doesn't matter if it's hot outside, cold outside. I want my small black decaf, 3 sugars, Dunkin' Donuts. That's the way to roll.
I may have to be
So
like mom and go to decaf too. I really shouldn't be drinking regular coffee. Hell, I shouldn't even be really taking 5-hour energies, but I do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you ain't supposed to have that stuff. I know. Is that your preferred energy drink though? If you do have it, is it 5 hours?
Yeah, I don't drink Monster or any of that stuff. I drink 5-hour energy.
Wow.
Some people like to say it's worse than the other stuff, but I don't think so. But each his own.
Listen, It's small but mighty. That's what we know. It's small but mighty.
Exactly.
You know. Speaking of which, listen, we just had a crazy week of pro wrestling action. Of course, AEW had their All In pay per view. This is the anniversary of when they had all that trouble last year, which ultimately ended up with CM Punk leaving the company and coming back to WWE. So they didn't have any controversy like that this year. But what's interesting is that, last year Tony Khan had claimed that they drew 81,000 fans. The government out there, they came back with a figure that was close to 72,000. So we don't know, Tony may have messed up his math a little bit. But this year, surprisingly, they went down to a little over 50,000 people that were in the building. That's a pretty dramatic drop. I mean, we're talking somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people difference there. What are your thoughts on that type of reduction in business in just 1 year? Same venue, by the way, but in 1 year they lost that.
Well, let me just say this. Going back to what you said originally, about the numbers being increased by Tony possibility. Listen, there are some talks that WrestleMania 3, 93,173 people were exaggerated. That the number was not that big. It was big. It was definitely close to 100,000 people, but it wasn't that big. That was always spoke upon years after WrestleMania. So it's not unheard of for a company to take, some numbers and make it more appealing to make it seem like they sold more. That's never been a case. Um, but in terms of the drop in the attendance, when AEW first went out there, it was new. Basically, nobody really, they were excited for it. They knew what they knew from TV, but now it's kind of like they got out there, they performed, they had a great show last year, and it's like the suspense, the thrill is over in a sense. So now you have to get those people back that only went there to see it because they've heard of it, but they've never been involved. They never seen a real AEW match. So now you have to put that in perspective and then try to go back to the drawing board and get those people that you lost back.
Absolutely. And listen, every venue that they perform in, for the most part, there is a significant difference. They're not even trying to set up for more fans than, or even the same amount of fans that they did last year. Um, they're booking these venues that hold 13, 14, 15,000 seats, and yet they're only selling 2,000, 2,500. Yeah, just crazy numbers, man. The place is completely empty.
Well, I mean, we all learned how to perform that way when the pandemic happened. When there was no crowds in the arenas. But again, it was new the first time they went out there. The excitement was built up and everything. So, in my opinion, you kind of expect the numbers to drop in a way. I'm not surprised, because the the whole element of surprise with having AEW over there was the first time. It was new, it was unique, and they did what they did. So it doesn't surprise me.
Well, listen, I'll just say this. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that Tony Khan has made is putting so much emphasis on these numbers and making claims that he was going to take on the WWE and do this and do that. Now that they're in a significant downturn, AEW and WWE is way up, and the sky's the limit for them right now. Um, it really looks silly on Tony's part, and all of his words are coming back to bite him.
Listen, the only people that were able to keep up at one time with WWE was WCW. With the magic that WCW had, it was just that. It was magic, and nobody had ever seen a company that was able to compete with the likes of a WWE before. So, Tony's still got some growing pains he's got to get out of his company. I think once he does that and then puts the right people by his side, knowing what they're talking about to help that company to be at the level that it really should be, then and only then will you see the success of AEW. Um, you know, Again, I'm pulling for AEW. I think a lot of people are pulling for AEW. Hell, there are people in the WWE locker room that is pulling for AEW because you don't want one company to have the monopoly. It's just as simple as that. And right now, it seems like AEW hit that high, and now they're on that middle ground. In other words, it's kind of like, okay, we hit the high. Where do we go from here? This is why I think a person like Shane McMahon coming to the company, I think would do great because Shane would actually be able to use the knowledge that he learned from his father to be able to help this company.
Agreed 100%. And listen, if that's what the move is going to be, then pull the trigger and let's go, because they still don't have that TV deal going into 2025, at least not in the United States. I mean, they're in bad shape when it comes to that. And again, you have the insecurity. I talked to a lot of people in that company, and they are just as confused as anybody else in terms of what the future of that company is going to be. That is not how you want your team to be feeling right now. You know what I mean? It just, especially going into the holidays, man.
Duke, remember, be careful with that because then it'll all turn around. They'll say that you said that.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, we got to watch out for that. Yeah, we don't want the snakes to get upset again like they have been. That's right. So
No, but in all actuality, Tony, I love your product. I think it's great. I just think you need help, and I think you need people that's going to steer you in the right direction. It's great that you have been watching wrestling since you were a little kid, and you at the ECW arena and probably countless WrestleManias before you made the jump into wrestling. I mean, my hat goes off to you, but you just need somebody that's going to be there and not just be a yes man. But if they have to say no to you, then they say no, regardless. So if they lose their job or not, that's a real friend. That's a real business partner.
indeed, indeed. Now on the other side, we saw on SmackDown Jacob Fatu. He was able to attack Roman Reigns, and now business is really starting to cook now because the entire new version of the Bloodline, they're beating up on Roman, and the question remains now: who is going to help Roman take on this faction of young, hungry lions led by Solo Sikoa? What are your thoughts on that? There,
I mean, the hell of a pop between Roman and The Rock would be huge. To have something like that. Other than The Rock, I just don't know. If you put The Rock, Cody together, that's a fraction right there that could help Roman overpass. Plus, you got the Usos already there on their side. So I don't know if anybody. I think the players are already there, from The Rock to Cody to the Usos. They could all have Roman's back, but again, I don't think there's anybody that can come close to filling that void except for the people that are already there.
well said. Well said. I mean, again, it's just one of those things where you have to tune in to find out what's going to happen next, because it's all action, it's all excitement. And these folks at this point, WWE is printing money. They just can't miss. It's crazy, man.
My hat goes off to Hunter. My hat goes off to Paul Heyman. My hat goes off to everybody that is responsible for the growth and success of the WWE. It's truly amazing to see how much they are doing right now and how much ratings are up, attendance are up. I mean, it's incredible.
It sure is. It sure is. So again, once again, congratulations, WWE. Just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, there's not much more to say about it than that. Just keep doing what you're doing, because clearly it's working. Devon, I want to ask you something, because I know that you have some things that tend to outside here. So I want to ask you this before you go. There is a trend that's been going on the last couple of years where we have independent wrestlers who, unfortunately, they get injured at indie events, and then they go online and they set up GoFundMe to help try to pay for medical bills. And I find this interesting. Instead of getting the money from the promotion where you got injured, you're asking the fans to foot that bill. You, as a Hall of Famer, as a person who has been on every level of pro wrestling, you started from the bottom and then you went all the way up to the top. What are your thoughts on this trend right here? Do you feel that the promoter should be responsible for paying those medical bills? Or, is it okay to be doing these GoFundMe's?
It's a real tricky thing with those things because you got people that make these GoFundMe accounts and then they take the money and steal it, and it's not used for what it's interpreted for, what his intentions for using it for. So it's a very, very sticky thing with that. Um, you have to be careful on people on who you send your money to, and make sure that you know where it's going, because if not, you can get scammed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All I'll say there is, please, if you are asking for GoFundMe money, please make sure you're using it for what you're claiming you're going to use it for. Because to be hitting up these folks these days, the fans are already spending money on the merchandise. They're already spending money on the pay-per-views. They're seeing you live at the meet and greets and what have you. You can only squeeze so much out of a rock. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And we'll leave it at that. Devon, if anyone wants to reach out to you, keep up with you, even if they want to check out the wrestling school, what's the best way that they can do all that?
Okay, well, you can go to Instagram. I am on Instagram at Testify Devon. I'm sorry, at Devon Dudley Academy, DDA, short for, and you can check out all the information, check out what we do there, and if you feel like you want to be a wrestler and you think that you got what it takes, then come on down and give it a try. We'll be more than happy to help you come in and help you train to be the next Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, or whatever you feel fit that you want to see yourself become. We can help you do that.
Well, brothers and sisters, as always, the five-time Hall of Famer, Devon Dudley, he is just hilarious and insightful, and that's good stuff there. Devon had some business to take care of, but don't worry, folks. We are just getting started, because we have a special friend of Devon's, a very special friend of mine who took some time out of his busy schedule to come and speak to all of the Devon and the Duke listeners out there. The man himself, the Don, the true Don of pro wrestling, Big Vito Lagrasso. How you doing there, Vito?
I'm doing fine, Duke. Thank you very much for having me on your show with my good friend Devon Dudley. Devon and the Duke. Everybody should listen to this show. It's got a lot of good content. Thank you for having me on.
It's a weird thing here. We East Coast guys, we just can't get away from each other. You know what I mean? It's like we're paisan all the way, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, all our tans match, so I mean, we're all good.
Folks, I tell Vito all the time. In fact, my mother even says this. Vito is black. Whether he knows it or not, he's Sicilian, he's black. It is what it is, okay? So for anyone who
Southern
is
Italy,
wondering,
Southern Italy.
Southern Italy. And listen, we dress the same too, so that's the best part. Vito's just a little bit taller than I am. That's the only difference there.
Yeah, I mean, I shop at Big and Tall. You short, you buy at Short and Short. I mean, it's good.
You're the only one who can get away with that with me, okay? I'm just gonna let this be known. You're the only one. My goodness.
Well,
So
listen,
listen,
I'm
man.
letting you be Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci was 5'5".
Yeah, and he was always the toughest guy in the whole movie. So yeah, I'll take that. I can deal with that.
All right, so I'm giving you Joe Pesci, and you're still balking. It's not like you sent me a fruit basket or a wine collection or cigars. I mean, you do it for Devon, but not me.
Oh, here we go. You see, you in the fruit basket. Listen, if somebody wants to send you a fruit basket, let's get this straightened out once and for all. What is in the basket? Give me the rundown of what is the Don Big Vito's fruit basket. What has to be in there?
There has to be Italian cheese. There has to be some prosciutto, some olives, some wine. Okay, maybe some Italian pastries wrapped up properly. Um, you know, maybe a bottle of champagne, some after dinner Italian mints. I don't know. I mean, Duke, you still haven't come through. And you know what's funny, people, is I know Duke longer than Devon, and there's a show called Devon and the Duke. What happened to friggin' the Duke and Cosmo show? I don't know. I don't
Listen,
know.
we can't do
Something
that
happened.
show because it'll get pulled off the air because we'll be talking about things that we're not supposed to talk about, and that thing that happened with that guy, and I listen. I'm trying to stay on the right side here. Come on now, Vito.
Yeah, you're the guy that everybody wishes they could be. You know what I mean? And I'm saying it reverse psychology. You're the guy who sits there clean cut, mom and dad, apple pie, sisters, brothers, brother Devon, and then you got me, old Scarface. You wish you could be me. You wish you could say things in public and get away with it because I'm the guy you want to be.
Old Scarface, who has some of the best skin that you can find. I mean, clear as a beautiful day. This guy over here, Noxzema and all these other skincare lines out there. You should be doing business with this guy. Okay, I'm just going to put that out there. It is what it is. My goodness. Listen, Vito, you have been traveling all over the place. The fans have been excited to see you. It's been really, really cool to see the resurgence of the Don Big Vito. We talked about your time at the River City Wrestling Con and some of these other places that you've been and what have you. As we turn the corner on 2024 and we look ahead to 2025, I mean, hey, how does it feel to be in the shape that you're in, to have the excitement around you that you have? How does it feel to be the Don Big Vito?
It has been a great experience, being in shape, being ready to go. People always say, Vito, you always dress to the nines, you look great. And the one thing that I always taught the young guys, always be ready. And one of the guys posted, this guy is always ready, always be ready, a spray tan away from going on TV. But most importantly, taking care of yourself for the future of your life means a lot too. So you can enjoy the fruits of your labor and enjoy, life, maybe not on the grind, but enjoy things that you work for. And that's what I stress to people. You got to take care of yourself. You got to look good, feel good. If you dress like a million, you feel like a million, you look like a million.
Indeed. Indeed. You're a family guy, which is one of the main reasons why you and I are such great friends. It's one of the main reasons why you and Devon are such great friends because we all are family people. We take care of our family. We make sacrifices for our family. This is what we're about. That's how we were raised. That's what is part of our code as men. Um, why is that so important to live like that and to be about that, especially for you personally?
Well, I mean, coming up, I really didn't have it easy. And, well, my mom dying at 19 kind of cut the family life out. So, like, you miss a lot of things. I didn't really get along with my old man too well, but in the end, we were okay. My brothers, they had it tough too. Growing up in a neighborhood where, you know, you had to fight and defend your turf and fight to be somebody. And because who you were related to, that took into account of a lot of things and the people you work for, and, finally picking a profession that, you had to stand up and be a man. And when you talk about family, not having, but then wanting to have people around you who love for you and care for you. And maybe it's not who you start out with, but it's who you finish with. And what people don't realize is, that the wrestling business is a lonely life and you're on the road and away from your family. But when you're not in it full time, what do you come home to? An empty house. So, I mean, like Devon, he rode the same roads and he had, he's been through his stuff. I've been through my stuff. And what you realize at the end of the day is having a family and raising kids, enjoying the small things like going to a cigar bar or hanging out in a jazz club and listening to music or, just being home and messing around with your dog or going out to dinner with your wife and trying to live a comfortable life and not have the struggle. Being able to enjoy the people who you consider your family and, embrace them and include them in everything. I mean, and watch your kids grow and be productive citizens. And, you know, sometimes they say, I don't want to be like my mother and father, but the best traits do come from your mother and father. And, I raised two children that have my traits, and, they're doing good. They're doing good.
Love to hear that. Love to hear. And yeah, you are a dog guy, a dog dad, so to speak, as well. Uh, what is it about you and your bond with animals? Because legitimately, you just turn into a big pile of mush anytime you have your dog around.
Well, I mean, with kids and dogs and animals, I mean, having to be tough every day of your life and having to go out there and just look at the world, it gets draining. But when you could kick back and just be yourself, your inner self, and you could hug your dog, and like even when I go grocery shopping, I talk to every little baby in a stroller. I talk to every little kid. I make friends, and it makes me happy. So I mean, I like to be happy. I like happy kids, happy dogs, and kids and dogs can sense good people. When they come up to you and hug you and kiss you, that means that you are good people. You're quality. So I got that quality and trait in me. So on that note, I'm good. Everybody fights with their wife every now and then, but that's just normal living. So I mean, that's the way it is. It's just household 101.
Indeed, indeed. And listen, shout out to your lovely wife, Noelle. Best Buns, we know that. We know Miss Best Buns out there. She is a whiz online and all that good stuff. Helps manage the big Vito brand, and on top of all that, legitimately one of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. Really respect and appreciate her and the bond that you two have. It's very very special, and it's awesome. Awesome
Hey,
to call you both friends.
thank you very much for that. And the same goes for your family, Duke. I know I never met your family or spoke to your wife, and but we do speak about your lovely mother and her fondness for me, which I greatly appreciate.
Don't start any trouble now. She still has her handcuffs, okay? I'm just going to tell you right now. All right?
That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm telling you.
Folks, through the years, especially on Duke Loves Rasslin, Vito has just been an awesome, awesome guest. He and I have shared so many wonderful conversations online and offline, and legitimately, this is one of my true friends in life. I really appreciate Vito and Noel very much, which is why I was very disturbed, quite frankly, at some recent behavior from someone who I have covered before, a guy by the name of Eric Sims, who is a vendor in the wrestling industry. I guess that's the best way to describe Eric. He's a vendor. He sells memorabilia and he'll book wrestlers to either do virtual events where they sign autographs on things, or he'll actually bring them out to events to do signings and what have you. Eric's been at it for years, and everyone knows who Eric is because of that. And he's a pretty polarizing guy. A lot of people do business with him, and Vito has done business with Eric through the years. But there are a lot of people who are not too happy with Eric because of his business practices and really his temperament, the way that he treats people, which is not always savory, for lack of a better term. So a lot of folks who have listened to my shows through the years, Vito, they were alarmed when they saw a series of posts from Eric Sims, and this has been going on for weeks now, in which Eric has disparaged you and your family. Eric has said a lot of things that I know for a fact are not true. Let's just call it what it is. I know it's not true. And I will say, at least from my perspective, it looks like Eric has taken a turn for the worse now, where he has uh, made some threats. And it's scary for me as a friend of yours and as somebody who respects the wrestling industry and respects all of you folks who have sacrificed so much to entertain us as fans. And knowing you personally, Vito, to this day, the sacrifices that you make for your family and for the fans, just to deliver on a great experience every chance you get, it is disturbing that this guy, who's best known for being slapped by the Iron Sheik over not communicating properly and disrespecting the Sheik, quite frankly, this same guy is out here threatening you and your family, essentially. So I know that this has made a turn to the legal field, and I know there are certain parameters where you can't touch upon for legal reasons, and I'm not trying to drive that. We're not going to go in that direction per se, but just from a general standpoint, based on what you can say right now, how are you feeling? I mean, are you folks are right, especially given the threats that this guy's been making recently?
Well, Duke, I'll tell you, it's been very hard. And, you know, this started out where a friend of mine, Tracy Smothers, had passed, was in a hospital bed. Mr. Sims had sent him photos to sign on his deathbed. I didn't take kindly to that, and that's where the first thing started. And I outed him online for it. So we settled that. And then a gentleman who's another friend of mine, Mantar, died in the early mornings. And like about 8 or 9 a.m., Eric came on his Facebook and he says, "Hey, who would you like to see on my show?" Because he had a booking and Mantar was booked. Mantar's not going to be able to make it. Very insensitive, immoral, very, very heartless. I stood up for my friend. I said that was low, and Mr. Sims has had a habit of preying on people's hardships and trying to act like a savior. But in the end, he's looking to line his pockets as best as can be. When it comes to my wife and I came back to wrestling because I'm trying to pay medical bills, and everybody knows this. And I started wrestling again. I couldn't work because she had major surgery. Eric knew about this, so he booked me on a show, and it turned out to be one of the worst decisions I ever made in my life. Um, I go to the show. I was in an airport. Just to give you guys an outline and how the weekend started. I was in the weekend. I was in the airport for like 10 hours. I get to the hotel by 11 o'clock. I hadn't eaten nothing, and he says, "Well, everything is closed." So I go to 7-Eleven. I get a couple of monsters. I didn't eat anything because I don't like to eat when I travel. Get to the hotel. All right, why don't you come up and sign some photos? I told him no. I said I just spent 10 hours traveling. I didn't eat. I went upstairs. He comes upstairs. "Oh well, I'm looking to get you something to eat and take care of you. Make sure you're all right, and then maybe you could sign some photos." I said, "I am not signing no photos. You told me there was no food, so I knew the weekend was going to start bad." And quite frankly, I had a bad feeling in my stomach when this happened. So the next day, 9 o'clock, I show up for photo ops in a separate gimmick as Skull Von Crush, and I fulfill my obligations by signing his memorabilia, signing his photos, because I was there to sign his photos only, not sign any other vendor's photos or merchandise. So the next that day, Johnny the Bull texts me. He said, "Vito, I'm not going to be able to make it." Now, the only reason Johnny was coming was because he was trying to help me out because he knows that I've been, struggling. Not because I can't pay my bills, not because I can't survive in the world and Eric Sims gave me a booking, but because I just had to pay medical bills. And I have money in the bank. I'm good financially. I pay my bill. You never seen a big Vito GoFundMe or me begging for money online. And Duke, I sold all my memorabilia that I had, and I didn't mind doing it because a family man takes care of his family by any means and costs, which you know that. So, and I never, and Duke and I are personal friends, and I'm friends with Devon. Never once in the 10 years have I ever asked any one of my friends for $1. And Duke and Devon could always say that. No, Vito's a stand up guy, takes care of his family, never came to me begging nothing. Never once. So, Johnny the Bull texts Vito, I'm not going to be able to make it because I have a family emergency. Okay, I understand. I tell Eric, changed the whole demeanor of the weekend. All of a sudden, he was unhappy. Mean the first thing he says to me is, I'm sunk. Val Venus was sitting right next to me along with his partner, Richie. Now, what people don't know is Richie acts as the gopher, but Richie actually is the silent partner and the money guy for Eric Sims. But he allows Eric to treat him shabbily, humiliate him in public. Now, if I was a partner to somebody, you ain't talking to me like that. Or what better yet, you're never talking to me like that in public because it just ain't happening. So we go to lunch. That day, I'm going to tell everybody, Val Venus and I made Eric Sims money on that day. So we finally go to lunch, and I still haven't eaten yet from the day before. We go to a sushi buffet. Everybody eats, they're happy. Eric gets the bill. It's $150. Again, he turns more miserable. It's $150. So we go to the next day. I get down there, and he has a face on, and it's going to be a terrible day. Not only is he miserable, but he humiliates his partner, Richie. He does it in front of Bill Hazelwood, who is the MC for T-Mark Promotions. Someone who can give credibility to everything that I am saying. The rest of the day, he's just a miserable human being. And then he has a fight with the photographer who was in the room doing photo ops. Then he has a fight with the vendor who was bringing in Big Sal and Tony Mamaluke. Now, grant you, this is kind of strange. We're supposed to be doing a FBI reunion, but everybody's sitting at separate tables. So it was kind of stupid. So come the end of the day, I fulfilled my obligation to Eric Sims by signing all his photos. Now, when you say sign photos, guys come up with 100, maybe 150. I signed 300 photos. Talk about somebody taking advantage. But I am a quality person. Anybody who books me, and Duke, you know this for a fact, anybody who books me, anybody who does business with me, anybody who has anything to do with me in the professional wrestling business, Vito is one of the most professional human beings that ever stepped foot in the wrestling business. I dress like $1,000,000, and then when I'm not in doing my signing, I dress down. I still look like $1,000,000. I'm humble to fans. I'm humble to vendors. I'm humble to everybody out there. And anybody who knows me knows that. When it comes to wrestling, I give 150% every time because I do have a secret love and passion for wrestling and a respect for all the people who took the time to teach me. And it would be a slap in the face to them for me to act like an ass because those guys, those superstars, those greats passed the torch to me and letting me be in the business and teaching me wrestling 101. So come the end of the day, it's still 2:26, Everybody is closing up shop. Eric asked me to sign some Shinsky boards and some more stuff. I said, Eric, I'm done. I said, I'm not signing anything else for other vendors. It's not our deal, so you can make extra money. I fulfilled my obligation to you. Eric, I'd like to get paid. He starts to pay me in front of Bill Hazelwood and a few other people who were sitting there. I said, Eric, I said, you're not going to pay me in front of anybody. I said, we are going to go to a private room. We go to the private room. I make sure the other person leaves, and it's just Eric and I sitting in that private room. I let him know strongly how he treated me like garbage. He made the weekend miserable. I said, and I wasn't taking it anymore. I would like to get paid. Now, mind you, on this podcast, he went on and ranted and raved on me. He said it almost came to blows. No, I spoke strongly, and Eric sat there, quiet, didn't say a word. So I come out after I get paid, and he says, okay, let's go to lunch. I said, Eric, I said, would it be okay if you gave me, if I could do lunch later because I have to wrestle? He says, fine, that's no problem. What he went on and said on the podcast is like total nonsense. So I go and wrestle for T-Mart. I have a great match. It's documented um, what old school tradition was like from people like Barbara Goodish, who I met, Karen McDaniel, and a lot of the other people like Bill Hazelwood and the Southern wrestling community, how great it was to see old school psychology in wrestling. So I ended the night on a pleasant night. Eric had left. Here comes the day where I got to go home. So there was a storm back home, and everybody knows I live in Florida, and my wife is alone. She's scared because she has her health issues. So flight cancels. Now the driver Paul takes me to the airport after I asked Eric about 50 times, can I have the name and number for this guy, which he didn't do until like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So the gentleman, Paul, was so nice and polite, takes me to the airport, flight is canceled. I call Paul. I said, Paul, flight is canceled. He comes back and picks me up. Now, when I left the hotel, I asked Rebecca, who was the host behind the desk at the Hilton, please keep my room open because I might have to stay. She goes, Vito, no problem. She was also a big wrestling fan of mine. She says, Vito, I'll help you out as any way I can. We get back to the hotel. I had already let Eric know that the flight is canceled. He calls up the hotel and tells Rebecca word for word, don't let him use my credit card. He's got to pay for his own room. Now, when you're a guest by a vendor, the vendor is responsible for you getting you there and getting your hotel and getting you home and paying for your hotel. So I go back to the hotel and we're sitting there and we're trying to figure out. Eric is not answering his phone. I call his partner, Richie. He tells me Eric is not picking up the phone. Now, my wife then texted him and said, what's going on? Why is there a problem? Paul, the driver for T-Mart Promotions, puts the hotel on his credit card. I repeat, people, a driver has nothing to do with me being a guest. We had alerted T-Mart Promotions that I was staying on. He said, he is a guest of Eric Sims. I'm not responsible to pay for his hotel, which is right. We finally get Eric on the phone. I give the phone to Paul. He says, "Listen, I got Vito a hotel. I paid for it. Make this right." The hotel was not the same Hilton that I stayed at, but I had to go to another hotel because Eric didn't want to pay a $40 fee for an Uber driver to get me back to the airport. He also stated in this podcast he could have got me home on a Monday, but made me stay over on a Tuesday. All because Johnny the Bull didn't show up and he didn't get what he wanted and make the money he wanted. He lost money. So once this is all settled, he gets on the phone with my wife. Well, he can go to the desk and get a voucher. When someone buys a ticket for you guys, the refund goes back to the person who buys the ticket. The voucher also goes back to the person who buys the ticket. It wouldn't go in my name, it would go in Eric's name. So I was stuck. The fact that I had to spend 2 days out there with no ride, I was in the middle of nowhere with nowhere to get food, grocery store, nothing. It was tough. My wife is upset and she's home alone during this storm in Florida, which was a big storm that was documented. So I finally get home, and the next day, Richie, the so called silent partner, calls me and says, "Vito, can you help me out?" I said, "What's up?" He said, "Well, I'm partners with Eric on this and I lost $1,100. Can you call Johnny the Bull to sign this?" I said, "You have the gall and the audacity to ask me to do this after him treating me like shit." He says, "I just thought I'd ask you." No problem. Fine. Eric goes on a podcast with Monty and the Pharaoh, his buddies. Now, he used a platform out of his friendship with these guys, not knowing what had transpired the whole weekend. So, of course, they took his side. That's fine. Eric badmouthed me, tried to humiliate me, selling my pictures online for $1, trying to devalue me, which has led to other stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So he started calling vendors saying not to book Vito because he's a prima donna. I get a call from Dylan Hines, which everybody knows is Bobby Fulton's son. Now, what people don't know behind the scenes about Dylan Fulton is when he was going through the roughest time of his life, and everybody knows he was going through a rough time, I called him. I said, "Hey man, what's going on?" Not looking for a booking, not looking to get anything out of him, but the guy looked in bad shape and he was having a rough time. I called him. I talked to him like a mentor and like a friend. And I became friends with him. And I wasn't asking him for anything. You just see somebody online, they're in stress. And I've done this, and Duke can vouch for me. I have helped many of the boys in this business when they were on the seat of their pants. And who goes to pick them up but Vito LaGrasso. I saw somebody having a rough time, and I went to help this gentleman also. He tells me, Vito, he calls me. "Vito, can you do me a favor?" I said, "What? Can you sign these Johnny the Bull pictures? It would help." I said, "Absolutely not." I says, "He already did a podcast and he buried me. Why would I do anything for him?" He says, "I totally understand. Eric asked me to call you." So Eric asked his partner to call. He asked Dylan Hines to call. The gist of it is, Johnny the Bull told him, "I'm not signing nothing until you make right by Vito for your actions." All he had to do was pick up the phone and apologize. This thing would have been over with. But this thing escalated into something that is so ridiculous for a 56-year-old man that it makes me sick. And to think that wrestling is a make believe world and is not real life. And you go on your Facebook page and you post stupidity, and then you get with your cronies who listen to one side of a story and they boast about this. Guys, real life comes out eventually. The truth comes out. This has gone further than just real life. There's a threat online, there's some other things online. And Duke, I'll let you handle it from here because I haven't heard your wonderful voice.
I mean, it's troubling, and like I said, the series of posts that Eric has made, he's making reference to murdering somebody, which is disturbing. You know what I mean? And I again I understand that on Thursday the 29th on your TikTok channel, and that's at the Big Vito brand on TikTok. I know that you're going to be doing a live stream where you're going to be going even more in depth about some of this stuff and how it's affected you and your family from an emotional standpoint and even from a safety standpoint. The concern here, but I guess the main thing that I want to know, Vito, is how should the fans interpret what the heck is going on right now? This guy is burying you. He's disparaging your brand. He's threatening you and your family's safety. Um, what's the biggest takeaway that the fans should have about all this mess?
Well, now that I have waited to make a statement, and people have been wondering why I have not made a statement. I have gone beyond Facebook, Twitter, social media to handle this in a legal matter, where people who participated in this slander are going to be held accountable. And I say this as a scholar and a gentleman and in a business sense. You don't do things like this to people who complete their business transaction with you, which I have receipts in text messages that Vito did fulfill his obligations. So if Vito fulfilled his obligations, why did you go to these great lengths to humiliate me, devalue me, and do all these things? Especially with podcasters who don't know the whole story. So Eric, put them in jeopardy as well as the sponsor for the show. Everybody's going to be held accountable. So if I was the people who are associated with Eric after listening to this and tomorrow, I would be pretty angry at Eric because I'm sure Eric didn't tell them the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And this thing has led into a big, giant facade. And for what? Unsigned photos, folks.
Well said. Well said. Again, check out Vito's stream on TikTok at the Big Vito brand tomorrow. What time should folks tune in for that there, Vito, on the 29th? So 2 o'clock. Now, listen, if you miss it, that's okay. We understand people got things to do and all that good stuff there. Not everyone's going to be available at the same time. So keep an eye on the Big Vito brand on Facebook, on Twitter as well, because there will be specific snippets and what have you that'll be released after the main live stream. But the main point is this, and I'm just going to speak pretty frank to everybody out there. Everyone out there is doing what they can to survive on this planet. And it is horrific that anyone would think it's acceptable to threaten the lives of others, especially over something so trivial and ridiculous. You're upset because another guy wasn't able to make a booking? Come on, Eric Sims. Come on, man. And you go on some podcast, which I'm not even going to give those guys any promo and mention them because I'm a little disappointed in them as well. Um, it's just ridiculous the way that there's such a lack of respect and professionalism. And it makes me question just how much these folks care about pro wrestling as an industry, about pro wrestlers, and really about Vito. It's clear that you don't. And to take it to that next level where you're threatening people's lives. And Vito's going to talk more about that on his stream on the 29th. Once again, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Big Vito brand on TikTok. He's going to talk a little bit more about the threats and the implications of that. I just don't understand how you guys think you're going to get away with this stuff. Because I'm going to tell you right now, going the legal route makes sense. And who knows what that means for all of you. So I hope you have your ducks in a row, folks. You and are in the pot that you piss in. I hope you have your ducks in a row because you're sacrificing it when you do these things. And back to Eric Sims in particular, you really, really, in my opinion, you really need to take a long look at yourself in the mirror, brother. You keep having these issues where it's clear that you do not respect the wrestlers. I don't even know if you respect yourself, Eric. And you and I have had conversations personally, and it all amounts to the same thing. There is just something disturbing about you, brother. It's wrong. And again, to be threatening people and their family and disparage them to try to hurt their brand, I mean, let's call it what it is, right? I don't know how you think you're going to get away with it the way that you've been carrying on. But we'll see. And from a legal perspective, good luck to you. You're going to need it. So I'm gonna leave it there for now and table that because I really want folks to check out Vito's stream on his TikTok at the Big Vito brand, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 29th of August. If you miss it, keep an eye out on all the social medias, the Big Vito brand, because they will be chopping it up and making sure that the pertinent information is out there for everyone to consume. So, Vito, my heart goes out to you and your lovely wife and the kids, the whole 9 yards, even the pets, the whole 9 yards there, man. I just hope that you folks stay safe. I don't know a more stand-up guy in wrestling than you. You've always been nothing but professional. I have had countless talks with fans, with vendors, with convention owners, and it's been nothing but positive when it comes to Big Vito LaGrasso. Eric Bischoff was just on the show not too long ago putting you over about, how incredible that you were dressed and how professional you are and the whole 9 yards. Of course, Devon has put you over here on the show, Devon and the Duke, the whole 9 yards. You're a guy that exudes class and sophistication and respect. So for anyone to mistreat you, it's just ridiculous and it's not right. And somebody needs to stand up and say something about it. And that's exactly why, I'm glad to have you here on the show to open up a little bit about it. And of course, folks can check out your platform to get the rest of the story. But all I can say is hang in there, my friend, because, God doesn't make mistakes. And certainly, every action will result in a reaction. And in this case, from a legal perspective, I can't wait to see the reaction. And I'm going to leave it at that. Vito, you can have the last word, brother.
I just want to thank everybody here at Devon and Duke and my two friends for having me come on the show today and speak and be able to make of my first statement since this whole thing has happened. Coming on here as a gentleman and a professional means more to me than anything. And for the people who know me out there, they know me as just that. And it's just very sad that this has happened over something so minute as photos because someone didn't make enough money is beyond belief because everybody struggles in this world, and everybody has hardships. You might not know about their hardships, from Facebook or behind closed doors, but I've been standing tall for a long time. They've been trying to knock me down. I keep getting up. You know what I mean? And I just look at people and I handle life as it comes. But if they ever put me in a room and I had to fight my way out of it, and they said, Vito, it's life and death. Could you do it? I put my money on me. So I'll leave you guys with that, and I got no qualms about saying that I'm going to keep on trucking, keep on moving, take care of the olive oil business, and see my Gumads on Thursday night.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Rasslin.